The Galactic Council chamber was built to inspire awe, and usually it succeeded. A cathedral of steel and living crystal, its arched ceiling shimmered with star fields projected from orbiting satellites. Dozens of species sat in tiered rows that curve around the central dais, their bodies framed by banners, holograms, or bioluminescent crests. Here, empires bargained, condemned, or elevated entire civilizations. Here, decisions altered the trajectory of galaxies. But tonight, the chamber was subdued, silence heavy as the bronze entrance doors groaned open. A figure stepped inside, solitary, deliberate. Gasps rippled through the audience. Whispers followed in languages ancient and strange, their tones urgent with disbelief. Some clutched translator nodes tighter. Others leaned back as though the figure carried contagion. A human? One delegate rasped, his scaled fingers curling around the rail. Impossible, hissed another. The quarantine zone is sealed. It was sealed. Captain Elias Kale let the murmurs wash over him. He kept his stride even, hands clasped behind his back. His uniform bore no ornament, just a simple dark blue coat with the insignia of the newly formed Terran Directorate. He wore it like armor. The chamber's air tasted faintly metallic, recycled too many times through alien scrubbers. Elias did not blink. Not when he passed a towering Kethri with spiral horns. Not when he crossed beneath banners depicting wars humanity had never been told about. He walked to the center dais, the place where petitioners stood to address the most powerful body in known space. Above him, the counselor's platform shifted. Dozens of eyes, compound and simple, turned down upon him. 100 worlds weighing one intruder. The first voice to break the silence was harsh, layered with mechanical resonance. Chancellor Vadric of the ZYR Dominion rose from his seat, his segmented frame gleaming like dark obsidian. His species' voice carried through internal resonators, giving each word the sound of sharpened metal. This chamber is reserved for recognized sovereigns, Vadric said. You are neither recognized nor sovereign. You are an exile. Explain yourself. Elias let the moment stretch. He wanted them listening. He wanted them unsettled. His voice, when it came, was calm, level, almost conversational. Captain Elias Kale, representative of the Terran Directorate, he said. 5 centuries ago, your predecessors declared Earth and its colonies a quarantine zone. You barred all contact. You severed our future. You expected us to rot in silence. He paused, letting the weight of history hang. We did not. A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. A lean, feathered ambassador leaned forward, plumage shivering. You broke the quarantine? Elias met her eyes. No, we outlasted it. We endured. We built. We rose again. And now, he let his gaze travel the tiers of alien faces. We are here. The chamber erupted, overlapping languages clashing in confusion and alarm. Some demanded explanations. Others shouted objections. A few sat in ominous silence. Chancellor Vadric raised a clawed hand, his frame tense with something close to fury. Humans are forbidden. The quarantine was absolute. You should not exist beyond your cradle, much less stand in this chamber. This intrusion is unlawful. You have no rights here. Elias did not flinch. Then grant them. Humanity claims recognition as a sovereign civilization. Our seat at this council is overdue. The audacity of the statement froze even the loudest detractors. Never in memory had a quarantined species simply walked in and demanded representation. The council chamber felt smaller now, the starlit ceiling pressing lower. A gelatinous delegate from the northern spirals gurgled. How could primitives breach a containment grid designed by the founders? By learning, Elias answered. By adapting. The prison became our teacher. Every barrier you built became a challenge to overcome. We studied the walls of our cage until the walls cracked. The counselors shifted uneasily. No species was meant to escape such design. Humanity had not simply survived. It had done the unthinkable. A thin, silver-skinned envoy flicked his tongue nervously. If you could escape, why now? Elias clasped his hands behind his back tighter. This was the moment, because now we are ready. Isolation forged us. Hardship tempered us. We did not crawl here begging scraps. We walk in standing upright, because we have earned the right to stand. The chamber descended again into arguments, accusations, and sharp whispers. Elias stood in the storm, watching them. He knew what they saw. Not a conqueror, not yet, but something worse. A survivor. A reminder that cages could break. From the upper rows, Chancellor Vadric's voice cut through like a blade. This is blasphemy against the Council's authority. Humans are dangerous, unstable, violent. Our archives record endless wars. Your kind devoured itself in bloodshed. That is why you were sealed away. Elias raised his chin slightly. And yet we stand. Those records, true or distorted, are history, not destiny. Every species here has blood behind it. The difference is simple. We learn to rise from ours. Vadric's claws curled against the railing. His body armor shifted with a low metallic scrape, the ZYR equivalent of grinding teeth. He leaned forward. You presume too much. This chamber will not bow to a species unfit for civilization. Elias met his stare, unblinking. Then do not bow, but you will listen. We are not here to ask permission. We are here to tell you. Humanity has returned to the stars. Whether this council chooses to accept that reality or not, the fact remains. Gasps again, this time sharper. The brazenness carried weight. It was not arrogance. It was certainty, the kind only earned through survival. The council's presiding arbiter, a massive creature of crystalline facets, finally stirred. Its voice was a harmonic vibration that rattled the chamber. The human petition will be recorded. Debate will commence. Until such time, you will remain within council custody. It was not acceptance, not yet, but neither was it rejection. A crack in the armor. Elias inclined his head, measured. We will abide. As he turned from the dais, whispers swarmed like insects. He caught fragments, impossible, threat, unpredictable, but also something else buried and fearful, admiration. At the chamber's far edge, Vadric whispered into a calm line, words meant for allies, not human ears. Elias could not hear them, but he saw the Chancellor's eyes. Cold, calculating, afraid. Elias allowed himself a single thought as he left the chamber floor. They caged us to keep the galaxy safe. What terrifies them most is realizing the cage was never strong enough. The Council's chamber had not emptied after Elias Kale's arrival. Instead, its tiers swelled with fresh delegates, summoned by rumor. News traveled fast through Orion Prime stations. By the next cycle, the dais blazed with light as the Arbiter called the chamber to order. Humanity's petition was officially under review. Elias stood alone at the center once more. Above, the counselor seats ringed him like a tribunal. Every angle of the chamber was designed to remind petitioners of their smallness. Elias refused to bend beneath it. Captain Elias Kale. The Arbiter's crystalline voice resonated. The council demands testimony. You claim humanity has endured exile and now seeks recognition. Explain how a quarantined world, severed from all commerce and guidance, not only survived but built vessels that crossed the void. Dozens of eyes fixed on him. Some glowed with hostility, others with morbid fascination. Elias let the silence linger before speaking. We survived the way we always have, he said, through endurance, through stubbornness. The quarantine cut us off, but it did not break us. We clawed food from poisoned soil. We rebuilt cities from ash. We bled, we argued, we fought, and we learned. The cage became a crucible. Murmurs rose from the tiers. One delegate, feathered and sharp-eyed, leaned forward. We have partial archives of your wars. Billions dead in flames of your own making. How does slaughter justify admission here? Elias didn't dodge. Those records are not lies. We fought each other. Often. Too often. But each time we rebuilt, stronger than before. We do not erase our scars. We remember them, so we do not repeat them. Across the chamber, a serpent-bodied envoy coiled tighter around her post. Or perhaps you repeat endlessly, until the stars themselves burn. Perhaps the quarantine was mercy. That word, mercy, stirred something sharp in Elias. He kept his tone steady. If it was mercy, it was the kind that leaves chains around the neck. You isolated us, branded us unstable, but never explained why. Tell me, what crime did humanity commit to earn exile? The question cracked the air like a blade on stone. For a moment, silence held. Then Chancellor Vadric rose, his tall form gleaming with segmented armor. His voice carried through the chamber, every syllable deliberate. Humanity was sealed because humanity is a contagion. Your records speak for themselves. Wars without end, weapons that poison your own atmosphere, machines that scarred your planet's surface. A species with no restraint. The quarantine was not punishment. It was containment. Elias raised his head to meet the Chancellor's glare. And yet, despite everything we endured, despite war, famine, disease, despite the walls you built around us, we are here. Ask yourselves what that means. Some delegates shifted uneasily. Others hissed. A broad-shouldered reptilian counselor barked out, "It means you are dangerous." Elias answered without hesitation. "It means we are resilient. Danger is only half the story. Survival is the rest." The arbiter pulsed with faint light, signaling quiet. Records confirm both perspectives. Humanity's history is steeped in conflict, yet it is undeniable you have adapted. Perhaps the greater question is not what you have done, but how you escaped. Vadric's eyes narrowed. "Yes, speak, human. How did primitives dismantle technology meant to outlast epics? Who aided you? Which empire broke council law to give you tools?" All eyes turned back to Elias. He drew a slow breath. This was the moment they expected confession. They wanted a name, a traitor, some other species to blame. "No one aided us," he said. His words were simple, but the chamber shuddered with disbelief. "We learned. The fields meant to cage us became puzzles. The interference meant to blind us became patterns. Generations studied what you left. Generations tore apart the barriers you thought eternal. We broke free not by outside hands, but by our own." A silence followed, heavier than before. Then voices erupted, some furious, some stunned. "That is impossible. Fabrication. No species escapes the Founder's wards." But one voice, smaller, trembled with a different emotion. Awe. They did it themselves. Elias stood steady, letting the storm rage. He had spoken truth. Their fear was confirmation enough. Vadric's claws grated against the rail. "You expect us to believe you're kind, armed only with stone and fire, unravel designs older than this council?" Elias allowed the faintest smile. "Not stone, not fire. Time. 5 centuries of hunger. 5 centuries of questions. 5 centuries of failure. Until we stop failing. You think primitives cannot learn? You underestimate the patience of a species that has nothing left to lose." A few delegates shifted, their expressions no longer purely hostile. Fear was still there, but it mingled with something else. Respect, reluctant but undeniable. The arbiter's crystalline voice vibrated again. "The testimony is noted. The council will deliberate further." Elias gave a short bow of acknowledgement, but his eyes flicked upward, to where Vadric still stood unmoving. The ZYRR Chancellor's gaze was fixed on him with surgical precision, calculating. Cold, as the session adjourned, Elias walked from the dais. Behind him, the chamber broke into clustered whispers, each species murmuring in its own cadence. He caught fragments, unthinkable, dangerous, unstoppable. One whisper, lower but clearer than the rest, froze him mid-step. "We should have ended them when we had the chance." Elias did not turn. He knew whose voice it was. When he reached the chamber's side corridor, the sound dampeners fell over him, silencing the roar behind. Only then did he let out the breath he'd held. The truth was out. Humanity had endured exile, broken its chains without help, and now stood exposed before the galaxy. For Elias, it was not only survival that mattered now. It was recognition. And Vadric would fight to the last breath to deny it. Elias straightened his coat. Tomorrow would bring sharper accusations, deeper schemes. The council feared what they did not understand, but he understood them well enough. Fear was the first step toward respect. The next council session began with no ceremony. The chamber was restless before the arbiter even called order, voices rising in competing waves. Humanity's survival had become more than a curiosity. It was a provocation. Elias Kale stepped onto the dais once more, the center of a storm. His boots echoed against the polished floor, each step drawing fresh glares. Vadric stood almost immediately. His angular form gleamed like a black blade. "The council indulges this human too long," he said. His voice carried easily over the noise. "Records prove their nature. A history drenched in war. Entire nations devoured by their own weapons. They are predators, not diplomats." He gestured, and holograms flared into existence above the chamber. Images culled from fragmented archives. Mushroom clouds blossomed in gray skies. Burning cities collapsed in cascades of smoke. Soldiers marched across ruined fields. The ghosts of Earth's past flickered larger than life. The chamber hissed with unease. Delegates whispered in low, sharp tones. Elias let the images linger before he spoke. "You show our scars," he said evenly. "Yes, we fought. Yes, we bled. But we endured. Every empire here has similar ghosts, hidden or forgotten. You fear us not because of our past, but because we survived it." A feathered delegate rose, plumage bristling. "Do you deny that billions died by your own hand?" "I do not," Elias answered. "I say this. Suffering did not destroy us. It taught us. We learned to rebuild faster than we fell, to rise stronger each time. If that frightens you, good. It means you understand what we are." The chamber stirred again, some murmurs tinged with reluctant agreement. Vadric slammed his clawed hand against the rail. "Poison. You twist atrocity into virtue. You want us to believe slaughter forged strength. No, what you call resilience is recklessness. Your kind should never have left its cradle." Elias met his glare without flinching. "If recklessness was our nature, we would not stand here. We would be ash." The arbiter's crystalline resonance cut across the hall. "Enough. Debate will proceed in order. Evidence and testimony will be heard." But before the arbiter could shift to the next item, the chamber lights dimmed. A sharp alarm cut through the silence, pitched high and urgent. Delegates twisted in confusion. The arbiter's crystalline body pulsed, processing incoming feeds. A voice cracked over the comms. "Security breach. Dock 7. Human vessel under attack." The chamber exploded in noise. Delegates shouted, translators trilled, guards tightened ranks. Vadric was first to seize the moment. "An attack." His voice rang with false shock. "Or performance. A crude spectacle staged to frighten us into compliance." He turned his sharp gaze on Elias. "Convenient, is it not? An assault upon the humans vessel the moment we question their nature." Elias's jaw tightened. He had anticipated sabotage, but not so soon, not so bold. "If you believe we would endanger our only ship to impress you, Chancellor, then you understand nothing about us. Or perhaps," Vadric said, his tone cutting, "we understand too well." The arbiter vibrated, harmonics filling the chamber. "Silence. Security confirms hostile drones breaching human vessel perimeter. Council enforcement dispatched." Elias's mind sharpened. Drones meant planning. Access to the docks meant authority. This was no rogue act. Someone wanted humanity discredited before deliberations advanced further. He glanced upward. Vader had already resumed his seat, posture deceptively calm. Too calm. Elias stored the image away. Minutes dragged. The chamber seethed with tension until a voice returned over the comms. "Intruders neutralized. Human vessel secured. No casualties." Relief cut through Elias's chest, though he did not show it. His crew was alive. That mattered more than this chamber's suspicion. Vadric rose once again, his voice laced with triumph. How fortunate. An attack foiled just in time, with no harm done. Curious, is it not? Too precise. Too neat. Tell me, Captain, did your people write this play themselves? Elias held his ground. You call it a play. I call it survival. Someone wanted my ship destroyed before this council could hear us fully. I do not point fingers lightly, but sabotage this direct does not come from shadows alone. The delegates murmured uneasily. Vadric's mandibles shifted in what passed for a smile. An interesting accusation, the Chancellor said softly, but without proof, mere words. And words from a human weigh little here. Elias allowed himself the smallest smile. Proof has a way of surfacing, especially when someone leaves their fingerprints all over the attempt. That drew attention. Several delegates leaned forward, interest sharpening. Vadric's armor plates flexed against one another, subtle but telling. The Arbiter struck its crystalline staff against the floor. The resonance stilled the chamber. Enough. Investigation will continue outside this hall. For now, testimony resumes. The matter of humanity's petition remains unresolved. The lights brightened again, but the air had changed. The sabotage had shifted the current. Fear of humanity was no longer abstract. Now it carried the edge of immediate danger. Elias stood tall, steady, though his blood still pounded. He knew what they saw. A man too calm for the moment, too measured. Let them think him unshaken. That was power. When the chamber adjourned, he did not linger. The corridors outside hummed with whispers. Guards tracked his movements more closely than before. Delegates avoided his eyes, or stared too long. In the quiet of a waiting chamber, Elias finally let his breath out. He touched the comm clip to his sleeve. Kale to Horizon. Status report. A woman's voice answered, brisk and steady. Hull scorched, but no breaches. Crew shaken, unhurt. Drones carried ZYR Dominion code fragments, sir. Scrambled, but we pulled enough signatures. Elias closed his eyes briefly, steadying the surge of anger. Hold it. Do not transmit yet. If we reveal too soon, they will bury it. We'll wait for the right moment. Understood, Captain. He cut the line and stood in silence. The chamber behind him still buzzed with suspicion and fear. Vadric's words echoed, sharp and poisonous. But Elias had seen the Chancellor's comm crack. When he mentioned proof, that was enough. The Council thought humanity dangerous because of its past. Soon they would learn the truth. The real danger lay in underestimating a species that refused to die, no matter who stacked the odds. The Council chamber felt colder when Elias entered again. The sabotage at the docks had left its mark. Mistrust sharpened every glance. Delegates whispered in clusters, voices pitched low but urgent. Vadric's shadow loomed larger than ever, his influence stretching across the room like a net. The Arbiter's crystalline resonance rang out. Proceed. Captain Elias Kale will present evidence. Elias carried no datapads, no holocubes. Instead, he clasped his hands behind his back, gazed steady. Before we continue, he said, I must ask, do you value truth or convenience? Because what I hold will unsettle both. The chamber stirred uneasily. Speak, the Arbiter intoned. Elias raised his chin. My crew recovered fragments from the drones that attacked our ship. Embedded in their code were ZYR Dominion signatures. Scrambled, yes, but undeniable. This was not chance. This was sabotage orchestrated by those who would silence us. A ripple passed through the chamber, like wind over water. Delegates exchanged sharp looks. Vadric rose slowly. His voice was calm, but beneath it simmered venom. A bold accusation. Yet your word is not proof. How convenient your kind alone recovered these so-called fragments. Elias cut across him before he could continue. Convenient or predictable? You underestimate us. Chancellor, that is your mistake. He gestured toward the Arbiter. I submit the raw data. Trace it yourselves. If you find it untrue, I'll walk from this chamber and never return. The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed as security drones retrieved the sealed drive Elias handed over. It vanished into the Arbiter's core with a hum of processing. Silence pressed in, heavy and taut. At last, the Arbiter spoke. Preliminary verification confirms Dominion signatures. Further analysis required. Chancellor Vadric, how does the ZYR Dominion answer this? Vadric's plates shifted, scraping like steel on stone. Sabotage of data is simple. Humans fabricate evidence with ease. Even if the fragments are real, they could be stolen from Dominion caches. No proof links his counselor, he pressed a claw to his chest, to such an act. Elias tilted his head slightly. You hide behind technicalities because you fear what comes next. Your Dominion tried to erase us before we could stand. That failure is why you rage now. You fear humanity not because of what we did, but because of what we might do. The chamber fell silent at his words. The accusation was clear. A delegate with glassy, insectoid eyes leaned forward. If this is true, the ZYRR Dominion endangered us all. An attack within Council grounds undermines the very order we uphold. Others murmured assent. For the first time, doubt spread to the chamber not toward Elias, but toward Vadric. The Chancellor's mandibles flared. Lies spun by a desperate species. Are you blind? Do you not see what they are doing? They divide us, pit us against each other. This is their strength, corruption, manipulation. Elias met his fury with composure. We divide nothing. Truth divides. If unity means swallowing deceit, then perhaps this council deserves to fracture. The arbiter struck at staff. Order. The matter will be investigated fully. Until then, accusations will remain unproven. The session adjourned in a haze of tension. Delegates filed out quickly, hushed voices trailing behind them. Elias remained a moment longer, watching Vadric stalk from the chamber. Every movement radiating fury, restrained only by necessity. When the chamber emptied, Elias stepped into the side corridor. His comm buzzed. Kale here. It was his first officer, Lyra's voice, tight and urgent. Captain, we've intercepted chatter. Dominion operatives are planning another move, this time inside the Council archives. Elias froze. The archives were sacred, repositories of every treaty, every record of law. If compromised, the Dominion could erase or rewrite history itself. Do we have time? He asked. Not much. Their window is within the next cycle. Elias considered quickly. Exposing the sabotage fragments was one thing. Catching Dominion agents in the act would be decisive. But Council laws forbade human presence in restricted zones. If he intervened directly, he risked confirming every accusation Vadric had hurled. He exhaled slowly. Prepare a team. Covert only. No mistakes. If we fail, the Dominion controls the narrative. Understood, sir. The line cut. Elias straightened and turned down the corridor, his thoughts sharpening into iron. Hours later, the archives shimmered before him. He stood concealed in the shadow of towering pillars, watching his crew move like phantoms through the dim glow. The archives were vast, a labyrinth of crystal matrices and living data streams, humming with quiet power. From the upper levels, faint movement flickered. Sleek figures, armored in Dominion design, slid through the aisles. They moved with precision, heading toward the central spire where the Council's oldest records pulsed. Elias spoke softly into his comm, marked their approach. Do not engage unless necessary. One of his crew whispered back. They're placing disruptors. Captain, they're in a fracture of records. His pulse hammered. This was not just sabotage. It was erasure. If the records failed, the Dominion could claim whatever history they wished, frame humanity for crimes never committed, bury the proof of their own betrayal. He clenched his jaw. Waiting was no longer an option. Move in. Quietly. His team descended. Shadows and shadows. The first operative fell silently, throat pinned under Lyra's blade. Another was stunned before he could trigger an alarm. But one spotted Elias as he advanced. A shout in a guttural ZYRR tongue broke the silence, and chaos erupted. Elias drove forward, striking with brutal efficiency. His blade caught one agent in the side, armor sparking. Another lunged, claws slashing, but Elias twisted, countering with a crack to the throat. The archives lit with brief flares of combat, crystal spires glowing brighter as if bearing witness. When silence returned, the Dominion agents lay incapacitated, disruptors disarmed. Elias stood over them, chest heaving. Secure everything, he ordered. Transmit records of the attempt to the Arbiter. Let them see who truly seeks destruction. His crew worked swiftly, every motion precise. Elias glanced up at the towering spire of memory, still intact, still glowing. Humanity's fate hinged not only on survival, but on truth. Tonight, they had preserved both. As his team withdrew into the labyrinth's shadows, Elias felt the tide turning. For the first time since arriving, humanity was no longer merely defending itself. Now, they were striking back, not with weapons of war, but with proof, with resilience, with a refusal to be erased. The council convened again, but the air was different this time. Gone was the undertone of doubt that had clung to every whisper. Now, suspicion pressed heavily against the ZYR Dominion. The Arbiter's crystalline form gleamed at the center, its voice ringing sharp. This session addresses evidence of Dominion intrusion into the archives. Captain Elias Kale, present your findings. Elias stepped forward, every movement measured. He projected the recovered recordings. Shadows of Dominion operatives planning disruptors, their insignias catching the light, their voices unmistakable in guttural ZYR dialect. The images played across the chamber walls for all to see. Delegates gasped. Murmurs rose in a wave of disbelief and outrage. Elias let the silence breathe before speaking. This is no fabrication. My crew intercepted these saboteurs within your most sacred vault. They sought to fracture truth itself. If they succeeded, the Council's foundation would have been rewritten, and humanity blamed for crimes we never committed. The insectoid delegate who once doubted him now leaned forward, mandibles quivering. The evidence is undeniable. The Arbiter's voice pulsed like struck glass. Chancellor Vadric, does the ZYRR Dominion deny these acts? Vadric rose, plates rattling in fury. His voice thundered. Falsehoods. Humans infiltrated restricted sanctums. They violated our laws and now cloak themselves in heroism. The operatives? Staged by them. Do you not see? This is manipulation. They plant seeds of chaos, then pose as saviors. He turned, sweeping his gaze across the chamber. If you trust them, you condemn yourselves. Today they expose us. Tomorrow they dismantle you. Elias stepped closer, voice steady as steel. Enough. You call us manipulators, but it is your hand we caught in the fire. You tried to erase history because you fear it. You fear what it says about us, that we endure, that we rise, that we will not bow. And now, every delegate here has seen it with their own eyes. Vadric's claws flexed. For a moment Elias thought he might lunge, decorum shattered. But the Arbiter's staff struck down with thunderous resonance. Silence. The chamber obeyed. The Arbiter's form flared with light. The Council cannot ignore proof of Dominion sabotage. Sanctions will be imposed. Their voice in this chamber is suspended pending further judgment. The ruling rippled like a shockwave. Delegates erupted, some in triumph, others in alarm. Vadric roared, mandibles splitting wide. This is treachery. You elevate vermin above us? You will burn for this betrayal. He pointed one clawed finger toward Elias. This human is no diplomat. He is a weapon, a spark lit to ignite war. Elias met his gaze without flinching. If war comes, it won't be by our choice. But don't mistake restraint for weakness. If you strike us, we will answer. The chamber's energy crackled, as if the very walls strained to contain it. At last, the Arbiter raised its staff again. This session is concluded. Humanity will retain provisional membership while investigations continue. The Dominion must withdraw. Further violence will not be tolerated. The gavel strike of the Arbiter's staff ended the session, but the echoes lingered long after. Elias left the chamber with Lyra at his side. She kept her voice low. That could have been the moment war began. Maybe it still will be, Elias replied. His tone carried no triumph, only weary clarity. But for the first time, the Council saw the truth. They know we're not pawns. We're players. They walked through vaulted corridors where alien symbols glowed faintly on the walls. Delegates parted around them, some nodding with newfound respect, others glaring with suspicion. Humanity had moved from the periphery to the center. Visibility was power, but also danger. As they neared the docks, Elias stopped at a viewport. Outside, stars stretched infinite. Ships of every civilization drifting like lanterns across the void. For centuries, humanity had looked up at that sky, wondering who else was out there. Now they stood among them, contested but unbroken. Do you regret it? Lyra asked softly. Elias studied the stars a long moment. No, if we stayed silent, we'd be erased. Better to risk fire than vanish in the dark. She gave a faint smile, spoken like a human. Back on the Resolute, the crew gathered. They had watched the session through feeds. Tension knotted in their shoulders. When Elias stepped into command deck, silence gave way to quiet applause, brief but sincere. He raised a hand, halting it. Save it. Today we bought time, nothing more. The Dominion won't forgive this. They'll strike again. But we didn't come here to win in one day. We came to make sure humanity has a voice. And now they can't ignore us. Lyra added, we're no longer shadows on their edge. We're part of the board. A murmur of assent spread through the crew. Elias turned to the star screen, the council station gleaming behind them. His reflection stared back, tired eyes but resolved. He knew the fight ahead would be longer, sharper, and far more dangerous. The Dominion would not retreat quietly. Their claws would stretch into every corner of the council. Humanity's survival depended on staying vigilant, striking where needed, and never letting the truth be silenced. He spoke quietly, more to himself than to his crew. They wanted us erased. Instead, they've written our name in fire. Far across the station, in the shadows of a private chamber, Vadric stood with his own counselors. His rage burned like molten steel. Let them think they've won, he snarled. Let them bask in their fragile triumph. The council is slow, divided. Humanity is reckless, proud. We will exploit both. When the fire comes, it will consume them all. His eyes glowed faint crimson, hatred coiled tight. And Captain Kale will burn first. On the Resolute, Elias felt a weight settle on his shoulders. But not despair. He had seen fear in the eyes of the Dominion, and recognition in the Council's delegates. Humanity's journey was no longer about being admitted into some distant order. It was about carving a place of their own, forged in resilience, sharpened by survival. He turned from the stars, facing his crew. Set course for patrol around the rim. Stay sharp. The Dominion won't wait long, and neither will we. Engines thrummed, the ship pivoting gracefully into the black. The Council station shrank behind them, a beacon and a battlefield both. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility. For humanity, this was only the beginning.